It's hard to have a productive garden when the local wildlife population starts treating it like their own personal buffet. So if we want any hope of actually growing crops, whether it's strawberries or blueberries or vegetables, first thing we need to do is make sure the wildlife doesn't get to it before we do. And trust me, they're far less selective than we are. They'll take a strawberry while it's just slightly pink. Well, we're waiting for it to turn red. And if we don't do something about it, they will clean you out. So let's talk about how best to protect our gardens from the local wildlife population. The things that work for me may not work for you, but what I find most effective is exclusion. So it'd be that fences, or in my case, an electric fence. The other things that work well are scares, whether that you may see them over my shoulder or the twinkling. They're holographic tape that tends to scare away the birds. And the other is chemical control. And when I mean chemical control, I mean either they have a pepper spray that you put on the plants that deters the animals from eating it. Or in another case, there is a product I will show you that I've found to be really effective. But the first step for me is to put up the electric fence every year. And I have a portable one, or I make it portable. And it goes around the strawberries to start. They're not hard to set up, and they're extremely effective. They tend to keep every animal out except for birds, and they're a deterrent because they shock the animals just enough that it scares them, and then in the future they avoid going to that location. It's not harmful to the animal long term, but it definitely does keep them away. If you ever touched an electric fence, it's not a enjoyable experience. Setting them up is easy. Basically, you string the wire around as best you can. You make sure it's tight because you don't want it to ground out. If it grounds, then it's not going to be effective. You need to put in a grounding post, which is usually just a metal post. I use a 4-foot aluminum post pounded into the ground. This isn't necessarily about setting up an electric fence, but they are a great deterrent. The next step after dealing with the terrestrial animals is to deal with the birds. Now, birds, I find them a little easier to deal with. I found the holographic tape to be quite easy to set up, and it works quite effectively. As it twinkles, as the birds are flying in to steal your fruit or vegetables, they see the holographic tape twinkle, and it causes them to divert. It's just an instinctual reaction. Some people say it's evolutionary in the sense that birds may see it as a snake skin or something shiny or something moving in the woods, which could be a predator. So they move on from that. And I've watched it a couple times today where you can actually see the birds divert into the tree. Give the garden or the strawberry patch a second look and then bail and move on to something else. It's really simple to put them on. All you have to do is string a wire, or in my case I use fishing line, some aspirational 50-pound fishing line, and string it between a tree and a post. And then you basically take the holographic tape, put a piece of double-sided tape on it, you fold it over the line, and then you can slide it back and forth. If you want the actual holographic tape to stay in one place, you can just tape it to that location. You don't need anything strong, you don't need wire or rope, but they will work. Fishing line works very well for me. And then make sure you cut the holographic tape about 1 meter long, because once you want it just dangling over what you're trying to protect. In my case, I have them dangling over currant bushes. And then the strawberries are just below that, and I find that quite effective. The next step is, in some cases, I've been planting trees or oak trees out in the back and beavers have done a lot of damage in the back and basically killed all the trees. So I'm trying to get some new trees back in there, and I'm planting oaks. However, there are creatures that will smell the soil or the compost that you put in it to help the tree grow, and they'll dig it up. And this is what it looks like when they've gone through it. And basically in this one, they've killed the tree. So I have to plant another oak tree. Luckily, I grow lots of oaks because I just gather acorns in the fall, grow them in the spring. The best thing for that, I've tried this spice mixture, and it's supposed to keep pests away. Basically, whatever's working on those oak trees back there just finds it to be a seasoning. It's not necessarily a deterrent for them. However, the best product I've found is Plansky. basically dried blood from abattoirs or slaughterhouses. They collect the blood, they dry it. Now, if you spray that, you don't have to spray it on the plant, though. Like trees, it's fine. I spray it around the trunks in the winter, and it definitely keeps rabbits from eating it. Because again, rabbits are vegetarian. They don't like the smell of dead animal. Most other vegetarian animals go along with that, so they don't, if they smell it, they don't see it as palatable, and they will move on to something else. So if you spray this for oaks, it's fine. You spray the whole plant and then you spray the bed. And even if it rains, the smell will linger for up to 3 months, according to what it says on the box. And you give it a fairly heavy spray. It doesn't smell like anything. Like, I can't smell it. And the rabbits and the skunks and the possums and the squirrels, they tend to avoid it. It is my preferred method of keeping animals away from plants, and it's super effective on deer. So if you have an orchard like I do and you find the deer are grazing on the tips of the trees, now some people will say to trap the raccoons, and I'm fine with trapping, but what I'm not fine with is people relocating the raccoons to a new area. That just becomes somebody else's problem, and it carries disease, whether it's distemper, in some cases rabies, and Bailiscaris. Now, if you look up Bailiscaris, it's a disease that is found in raccoons and usually found in their feces. And it's not so much, as long as you're not handling that, like if you have them and you have to clean up, always wash your hands. Bailiscaris is a terrible disease. Basically types of worms, they get into your eyes and they cause brain damage. And there are cases of it, and where I live, they're rare. But the point is that raccoons in general aren't good to have around. The best method I've found, if you're going to trap them, is to scare the crap out of them, hit the cage with a stick, make it a traumatic experience, and they won't come back to this area. If you move them to somebody else's property, so if you think it's okay to transport these raccoons over 10 kilometers away, let them go on somebody else's woodlot or even in a park, that's just a bad idea. They'll carry the disease to that new area. They'll become somebody else's problem, and they're just going to fight with the local raccoon populations and probably suffer immensely. So your best bet is deterrence. If you trap them, scare them, and make sure that they feel threatened, then they won't come back. And if they do come back, you might have to get a professional trapper. They will deal with them, depending on how big your property is. I can't, deal with every raccoon here. There's a whole lot of woodland, and nature abhors a vacuum. So if you get rid of one raccoon, more will come in. So for me, deterrence is the absolute best way, and exclusion. They're very difficult, they're smart, they're cute, and they're destructive. So raccoons can be a problem, but I've found that for the other pests, the Plansky blood-based deterrent works. It doesn't work on raccoons, unfortunately. Electric fence works extremely well on raccoons. If you're having problems with small rodents, like squirrels and birds, for example, get a cat, or if you have cats in the neighborhood, they're pretty good at controlling those populations. They're natural predators. Squirrels don't like them, and birds definitely avoid them. So I install my cat under the red currant bush here, and he's happy to sleep there right beside the strawberry patch, and he's a very effective deterrent for animals in that area. Problem is, he tends to wander, so I have to put up the electric fence, but as long as the cat's walking around, it tends to keep all the other animals on edge, and they tend not to approach them. So Smokey's quite effective at doing his job, or earning his keep. Keeping animals out of your garden's not too hard, with a little effort. All you need to do is set up some barriers, make it difficult for them, make it unpalatable for them, and they will tend to disperse back to where they came from, or go find an easier target like your neighbors. It's one of those things that animals, they'll put a lot of effort into getting food, but they won't put in so much effort that it becomes difficult for them to eat. So the trick is just to make your garden slightly more difficult than nature or somebody down the road's garden, and what will happen is you'll find the animals stop caring about your garden and you will reap the full benefits of a healthy garden. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, give it a subscribe, and I will talk to you in the next one.